Hi guys, I'm Ella Pravetz. I'm joined here today with Aaron Medic Chamberlain, one of the shoutcasters for Riot's LEC, and Remer Rietkerk, who's the head of esports at Newzoo. Hey guys, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Raymer has a master's in economics, and Aaron was formerly a doctor. So we thought these two would
technically
be a
still
great...
a doctor. I just want to put that out there, right? Do you still get
Technically
it
still
before
a
my name?
master in economics as well,
Yeah,
for the record.
Yeah.
All right, so both of you are still experts in your fields. So you're both experts. So I brought two experts here today to talk a little bit about the pandemic and esports, coronavirus.
Okay.
So my first question to both of you is, who are you quarantined with?
At the moment, apart from my teddy bears, I am flying solo. So
I am also, although the Netherlands is kind of halfway, 1 foot in the full quarantine and 1 foot in the herd immunity camp. So it's a little bit of, you can still kind of see each other, but like, keep 1.5 meter away while you're hanging out. So it's a little a half and half situation. But I am in my flat alone.
We are all alone.
is that just in case anyone wanted to visit you there, mate? I'm alone in my flats.
So if
My
anyone wants
address
to come
is
here,
199. I want everyone
feel
to know.
free to drop in. If you're in Amsterdam,
No one else will
just
know.
ring my door. We can hang out. It'll be good.
If you had to tier list, Raymer, the top 5 people to be quarantined with, Aaron, you can chime in at one point.
Okay.
Who would you tier list?
I
This is
mean,
top 5
obviously the
people
two
or
of.
pro players.
Sorry, she said you can chime in at some point. The question was directed to
chimed
me.
in at the
I know
start.
you
chiming in.
love to be in the middle of the attention, but like let's let me give my answer and you could jump
Okay.
in and give your answer after.
Let's
Okay,
go
is
with
that-
let's go with pro players. Top 5 pro
Oh
players.
no, I'm not doing pro players. I'm a boomer.
Oh, you're
I
doing
can't hang
people.
out with pro
I wanted to
players.
give you that.
I'm doing people.
Okay, so
well,
so no pro players.
No pro players. I don't know any of the pro players. I've hung out with them a few times briefly, but this is not a. I'm the guy they look to, and they remember the time that me and some of my fellow league management guys, when I was at Riot, interviewed Mithy and Sven over some of the poaching allegations. And I'm not really someone they hang out with, and I'm a little too old also to hang out with them. So it's not really. This is not really a me and pro players chill situation. But if I had to do my top tier list of people, I mean, you two are obviously on it.
Thank you.
You're not
We
on
can
mine.
add-
I'm just saying. Like, I appreciate it, but you're definitely not on my list, right, man?
The broadcasting etiquette of, of a mole rat. Okay. I can't believe Dirk lets you on his fucking broadcast. Sorry, so Aaron's out. So Ella, you're definitely
Clear why
in.
you don't broadcast, Raymer. Thank you, Raymer.
I know. Dirk always told me, he's like, you talk so loud and so well. If I can only trust you not to swear, and I was like, yeah, that's fair. So all right, so Ella, you're in. We'll throw Becca and Trev on there. Let's grab Mehmet and Caroline, and we're there. It's my quarantine
right.
team. It's basically
That's
the
a
melt
good
team,
Quarantine
actually.
squad.
Yeah.
That would be a good squad. I think.
Aaron,
Caroline
sorry you
could-
didn't make the cut, but you did it to yourself.
Nah, that's all right, man. That's all right.
What about you, Aaron?
Make
People-
him do
your
pro
top 5.
players.
Yeah, you can
See,
do pro players.
I can do pro players. Oh, that's so generous of you. Thank you. I think if I was to pick LEC players, I'd put Whippo on the list. Mickey would be on the list. Caps? Oh, I'm not sure about Caps. I think Caps would be too boisterous. I'd grab Yankos because he'd laugh all the time. And then I'd get probably Finn and one other player. Kadril. That would be my top 5.
Would this be the same squad that you would use to survive the zombie apocalypse?
No, none of them seem very strong. I would use them as bait. I would be running and I'd see if I could outrun them. I'm pretty sure I could outpace most of those guys. So.
You're like opposite squad. Oh. Next question is for you, Aaron. As a former doctor, how long do you think we will actually see the effects of this pandemic, and how do you think it'll affect people's elos?
Oh, the elo question is very important. I think people are actually going to drop elo on average because more people will be playing more often, and that just brings the general level of play down.
Oh yeah,
Is it
what's the
elo
elo
by-
economics on this?
isn't ELO by definition a zero-sum game? Because anytime someone
Yes,
loses,
yeah. So
you
technically,
zero,
yes,
someone
but
loses zero.
I was playing it as the average MMR on the server rather than ELO because we don't actually use ELO anymore.
But I mean, MMR is because you do have natural inflation with. Well, wouldn't it go up then? Because you have natural inflation with Riot system, right? Because you
Well, that's
have
true, actually.
barriers on going down, so more people playing, which means that the average rating would inflate, and then the MMR.
No, so the average rating would
game.
inflate, but MMR is the hidden rating that doesn't have the hidden
But
the
that
blockers
still
on it.
that's a zero-sum game though.
Possibly.
Anytime someone gains MMR, someone else loses MMR.
Yeah, you're right.
But
So
your
yeah,
point, I
it
guess,
won't
is the
affect people's
average
elos
skill
at all
level
because
would
it's
go
a
down.
zero-sum game. Raymer is entirely correct.
It's that economics degree being put to work. It's only
Yep.
useful for winning arguments and talking bullshit. So,
Yeah.
but
How long do I think we'll see the effects? It's probably going to be at least a year before we really get out of the effects of this in terms of medically. Like the lockdown could continue for months, as far as we know at the moment. People are saying mid-April, start of May, but we don't actually know how long it's going to affect people unless every country follows drastic lockdown laws, like we saw in Wuhan. You really don't know how long we're going to have infections continuing for. I mean, Merkel said 70% of the German population is going to be infected by May. So it's going to be a trickle effect in most countries that are doing social distancing. And then in countries that are going for herd immunity, it'll be a much quicker peak. But it's probably going to be at least next year before we start to really get over the knock-on effects of things medically.
What do you think of of the whole idea that it's going to decline in the summer and come back in the fall? Is that, first of all, do you think there's any validity to that? And second of all, what is the downstream impact if it starts surging in the fall again?
So it's the same impact as you'd have. I'll answer the second half of the question first, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
You have seasonal flus every year anyway, so you get a similar impact in terms of influx of elderly people into hospitals, and you usually have a vaccine for it. So you go around and you give out widespread vaccines to immunocompromised people or people usually over 65 in countries that can afford that. Even having only worked in the UK, I can only really talk about the UK's health service, but just during a normal flu year, we were pushed to bursting point with over autumn and over winter with influenza cases. So if we do have a resurgence in autumn to September, it's going to push the majority of healthcare services past breaking point. I actually got an email from the NHS today saying, would you consider coming back? Can you sign up to a register and come and work in the UK again? So
Wow.
I think the NHS is trying to hire 15,000 extra doctors just to cope with the current influx. The pathophysiology of it leaving in summer and coming back in autumn, I'm not 100% sold on. I think coronavirus in general doesn't have that peak and trough that you see with a normal influenza virus. But I will be honest, I haven't read enough papers or looked at the pathogenesis of COVID-19 enough to say for certain that that's not the case. I know a lot of people have taken that from, and I don't know where you got the information from, but a lot of people took it from Trump saying, oh, when summer comes and the hotter weather comes, it's just going to go away. I have no faith that Trump has any research to actually back that up personally, but maybe there is research out there that does back it up.
No,
I just saw that if it doesn't last on surfaces if it's over 26 degrees Celsius or something like that as long.
Yeah, usually viruses struggle at higher temperatures, so that's true. But I think the main concern is if we say, oh, it's not going to last, and then we reduce social distancing and reduce isolation, and people are closer and they just pass, like you just cough on someone, right? So it's very easily aerosolized.
I think you should definitely ignore Trump's idea that it's just going to go away. But I think what people are more thinking back is if you look on the historical precedents of like the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic and the fact that you had the initial wave, which was very bad, and then it went away in the summer and then came back twice as bad. So people are thinking kind of playing out how that would look like. So I was just curious for your take on it.
I'd want to look at Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome and SARS to see what their ebb and flow was like, because those are the two most related to coronavirus. But I haven't actually looked at the details myself. If at home you want to have a look at those are the ones I'd recommend researching to see, because they're the most closely related to coronavirus, or the current coronavirus we have.
What tips do you actually have for people to stay safe then, especially if, we're having different countries that are saying, develop herd immunity or, it's safe to go outside in the summer. What would you recommend?
I think social distancing is the main way of doing things. Reducing the amount of contact you have with other people, especially since you can be a carrier without symptoms for the entirety of your time with coronavirus, or you can be a carrier without symptoms for 14 days and then develop symptoms yourself. I actually saw a really good video on this today, which is normal influenza has a 1.4 transmission rate, which means every person that gets it transmits it to 1.4 people. And after about 5 people, it gets... I'm trying to do the maths in my head. Remer, can you do this maths? Well, I'm going to do it myself. 1.4 to the 5th power is
I could not
like
do
5
1.4
people.
to the 5th power in my head.
Yeah, right. Whereas coronavirus has a
2.2
transmission rate of about pardon?
2.2, 2.3.
Yeah, it's about so one person transmits it to 1.4 people on average, and then over time that only transmits to about 13 people, right? Whereas
That's
with coronavirus, pardon?
That's influenza. It's like about corona. Corona is like 2.3, 2.4.
Yeah, sorry, did I say corona? I meant influenza. Influenza has a really low transmission rate.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry. Whereas coronavirus has a transmission rate of about 2.3 or 3, which means after you've infected one person, they've got and infected 3 more people, it multiplies incredibly rapidly, and you end up with numbers about 50,000 after the 10th power of infection, right? So the rate at which you can infect people, even if you're asymptomatic, is incredibly high. Washing your hands with warm water and soap is the best way to stop it. Kills almost all viruses if they're on your hands. And most people say maintain 2 meters apart, or 1.5 meters to 2 meters apart when you're in public. I just try to avoid being in public at all. It really sucks to have to stay at home, but if I only go out for groceries and if I only go out for essential stuff, then staying at home is the best way to reduce your exposure to other people. It does.
Why
suck,
do you think
though.
it's especially important for young people, especially who aren't as affected by the virus? I know you just talked about this a little bit. Exponentially it transmits, but a lot of people seem to not take that as seriously. Would you have a message for since our audience is a bit younger generally?
Can I swear? Don't be stupid. It's fucking stupid to risk other people's lives just because you're I'll be fine. It's the same as how here's the best analogy I have. You know how angry you get at older people who say, "Oh, I want coal industry to survive," or "Oh, I want this industry to survive," because you're killing the planet. What you're doing by going out and socializing with people is you're killing old people, right? You're killing someone's grandparents. You're killing someone's parents. It's not about whether or not you can survive the illness. It's about whether or not the people that you pass it on to will pass it on to people who can be infected. Most people will know someone whose family is in a hospital. Most people will know someone whose mother works as a nurse, or whose father works as a nurse, or whose father works with someone who's immunocompromised, right? All you're doing is increasing the risk that someone else dies, and it's foolish and stupid to ever want to have that blood on your hands. And you will have that blood on your hands if you go out.
Just to add on to that, I read a few things. People are basically saying it's roughly tantamount to murder. And I know that's a bit hyperbolic, but I think it's a good way to drill the concept in, right? In the sense that if you are there is a concept of negligent manslaughter, right? Whereas if you
100%.
are not doing your proper duty as a human to ensure you do not harm others, you can be liable for negligent manslaughter. Now, obviously, you would not legally be. I would assume you would not legally be liable for negligent manslaughter if you walked around with corona or didn't give a shit about it. But it is roughly tantamount to that, right? You also, I'm sure, have people either who you care about who are at risk, or who people you care about who have people they care about who are at risk. So it's not so much that it won't affect you as much as it will have an impact on everyone around you. And even then, as a young person, your risks are much lower, yes, but they're not nothing. It's not 0%. No. It's not as though just because, I don't have a autoimmune disease and I'm sub 40, nothing can happen to me. I mean, a lot of people, I hear stories of guys, and I mean, it's anecdotal. Yes, I'll acknowledge that, but stories of the guys who are in their 20s or something, and they're marathon runners, athletes, whatever, and they're literally in the ICU. And even if you don't die, you can still end up with severe lung scarring, with health issues that will follow you for the rest of your life. So it's not even as though you can walk around like fucking Superman, like none of this is going to hurt me. Like it may hurt you. And even if it does, you are spreading it to other people who it will hurt or will kill them. So you do have a fiduciary duty to society, because you're a member of society, to not be an idiot about this.
100%. And you just bringing up that negligent manslaughter thing again, Italy have already put in place laws that say if you have symptoms of corona, you go out and someone who gets infected and dies because of meeting you, you are going to be charged with negligent manslaughter and you can go to jail for 21 years.
Wow.
So it is not, it's no laughing matter, right?
Do either of you guys have suggestions for staying sane while you are trapped inside then, since, if you think the highest recommendation is just to be inside, to social distance, to not be around people?
I think the main thing I'm realizing is a little bit of exercise a day is really helpful. I really enjoy going to the gym, and I haven't done it, and I feel cooped up and at home. But this morning I did 20 minutes of just body weight exercise, and it made me feel so much better. It's not about like wearing yourself out or trying to do the hardest workout you've ever done, but it's just about getting some blood pumping. It helps with your cardiovascular strength. Your reflexes feel better. You feel more awake, and it just sets you up really well for the day. So I'd suggest trying to have a routine where you at least get some sort of exercise in, even if it's something small.
Escape from Tarkov is a dope game.
It is. So is Call of Duty's Warzone. And if you play Call of Duty Warzone, you can get a Florida Mutineers skin.
This is true. Plug in for Florida Mutineers.
I killed someone wearing it in a gulag the other day. They were really bad.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, Florida Mutineers players.
And if you play Escape from Tarkov, you could kill a chonky boy and take all his shit and sell it on the market. Yeah, so highly recommend Tarkov to stay sane. Whatever games you love, talk to your people, have Skype
with
calls,
people, I think is important.
Yeah.
Do it with
play
people.
with friends.
Like, find some people that you can just chat with and have fun with.
Or voice is better, man. Get on disc and just do some shit.
Yep.
You can also watch LEC because that's still being broadcast.
And LCS if you want to watch American.
And LCS.
What the fuck is wrong with
Overwatch League?
No, LEC. LEC. Watch LEC.
You can watch Overwatch League as well.
That's good. It actually starts again this week, which was going to bring me to my next question, which is LEC was one of the fastest franchises to adapt to having to move to remote production. Overwatch took an extra franchise. And what Remer? Remer's having
promoting
a thing
other games when he still works for Riot.
Yeah, but I'm a freelancer. Yes. I can promote other games, and I know Misfits have an Overwatch League team, actually. Florida Mayhem.
We do have an Overwatch, Mayhem, and we play this week as well.
Games.
What do you games? What's happening behind the scenes to make LEC one of the fastest to adapt?
Oh, it's been chaos. I can only give credit to our producers because they have done a huge amount of work. Last week, we basically did everything from someone's house. There was no using studio property. We basically had to assume that everything that was set up for the regular LEC could not be used. And we shipped a bunch of PCs to one of the producers' houses. They set up an entirety of an OBS setup that would let us switch, and we went through both Discord and a program called Blue Jeans to capture sound, but also to be able to listen to the game. It was absolute chaos, but in the best way possible, because we had, I want to say, about 72 hours from start to finish in terms of setting up and being ready for the show on the Friday. So,
wow. That's incredible.
Obviously there were like a lot of hiccups, but I'm really glad that we got something out.
So Aaron, you might not be able to answer this, but obviously I used to be on the league management team, so I'm very curious on the competitive integrity side. How like, because and when you do it in the studio, like Dan scans everyone's shit to make sure there's no like hacks in the fucking keyboard or however that works. You got the referees on site. You've got a very controlled environment. Hacks. You know what I mean though? They would check all the
I do 100%. I know what you mean. It's just that it's always funny to think of keyboard hacks, right?
So talk me through it. Like, what did they do on the competitive? And maybe you don't know it. If you don't know, that's fine. But I'm so curious what they did on the competitive integrity side.
All I know is from Max's tweet chain, because obviously being freelance, I'm not like in the decisions. But he was saying team streamed live video and audio from the practice room where they were playing. So the referees were watching live the teams and listening in the TeamSpeak channel that they were in. They also had video capturing software so that they could look for like on each of the PCs. so they could chrono break and watch for any bugs. And then the practice rooms were isolated, and I believe they had like PCs set up in the practice room that the player could install if there was an issue. So like if they needed to switch out PCs, the player could take the PC that was spare in the practice room and set it up for himself. So there was no like leaving the room to go and get another PC or anything like that. There was also a delay on the broadcast, obviously, so people couldn't tune into the stream and then watch the game live. We had a delay of enough time to make sure things didn't happen. And I believe Max and some of the team were going to spot check PCs to check for keyboard hacks. But I don't know if they checked them all beforehand or whether it was just we're going to come and randomly check throughout the day. So I can't promise that's a comprehensive list, but I can promise that is what I know happened.
How would you rank the at-home setups of all the casters?
Oh, mine's obviously the best because I exist here. No, I think Fosk's looks the best because she has a beautiful leather chair. Trevor's is the most hodgepodge. He had like a hood that he made out of a bit of sheet, like cloth, because his room was really echoey apparently. Andy's is on a dresser instead of on a desk. So he stands up next to his dresser and he holds his mic like this and casts like this the entire time. But he hasn't got a shock mount. So he's actually just holding his microphone in front of his face. They're all really cool. My only frustration is I don't have 4 monitors. So like I have 2 monitors that I use for my regular PC. And then I have to unplug those and plug them into the Riot PC when we're doing Riot stuff. Because we all have specialized Riot PCs for broadcasting. So I'm getting a new desk and then I'll just have 2 setups because we're doing basically everything from home now. So,
right. Are you guys making any additional adjustments to broadcast this week?
Yes, I believe so. There's discussion on webcams. I'm not sure if they're going to happen. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff with sound to try and get the best sound we can out. And I think we might have some fun stuff planned for Ready Check on like...
Ooh.
We're at home, so it's a little bit more complex to try and make things happen, right? So
I'm excited to see that. That's good because right after this airs, we'll be going into Ready Check at some point.
Oh, yeah. Perfect timing.
This is good hype. Perfect.
See,
hype.
Now if I've hyped it up
Remer.
and we're not doing anything fun, it's awful.
I know. It's like, well, what a disappointment. Remer, as it's your turn as a master of economics, how do you think esports will do economically compared to other industries during this pandemic?
So maybe let's zoom this question out a bit and let's talk broadly about impact to the economy. And now remembering again that, yes, I do have a master's degree in economics, but it's been quite a few years since I've graduated, and I would not consider myself a doctorate in economics, if you will. I'm still a level down.
No, because you're a master in economics. If you were a doctor in economics, you would have a PhD.
Yes.
Yes, we understand. Thank you.
Yes, by definition.
So I think that honestly, I was considering like who wins and who loses in a pandemic, and most people do lose, right? Like I think that there's a lot of all of the kind of I think a lot of Western economies have moved towards a gig economy, which is problematic because you don't have worker security, you don't have a lot of benefits, you have people who just get their hours cut, and so it really sucks for a lot of people who are working in the gig economy because a lot of the gig jobs are done, they're gone. That's going to have a pretty significant impact on people both in America and in Western Europe. I think that obviously hotels, travel, airlines, leisure, tourism, anything that basically is built around giving people shit to do in their spare time is going to suffer quite dramatically. It's pretty self-apparent because people aren't traveling. And I think the downstream effect of that, unfortunately, is that you're going to see a dramatic reduction in income and economic activity, which in the first phase is going to hit the ones who are most obviously affected, right? But then you're going to have problems with people who are not going to be able to make mortgage payments, people who are not going to be able to buy other shit. So then you're going to see a downstream downturn in other industries following on back of that, right? So if you have 13-15% of the economy that basically is not generating revenue, well, in the first few months, they're the ones who get hit the most. Those people are not spending on other stuff, which means you suddenly see a 10-15% downturn in people meeting their mortgage payments, and people buying shoes, and people not watching stuff kind of holds up, but any kind of consumption, right? Conspicuous consumption. So What you're going to see on the downstream effect is a lot of other consumer brands taking a hit too. Sports obviously is hit because all the sports leagues have closed. So the sports and entertainment industry has been hurt pretty badly by this. So you're seeing a pretty significant economic shock to the system. What the bailout packages that are happening in the U.S., that 1.8 trillion or so that are being considered, that is basically trying to affect that second layer of shock, right? At the end of the day, the entertainment industry, the travel, tourism, all these industries are just going to be hit. Sending money to workers in those industries helps prevent the second layer of shock. Sending money directly to those industries helps preserve those companies. But if the workers don't get help, those consumption levels still go down, the foreclosures still rise, then you see the broader system shock still. So this is one of the things that are being debated and considered is how much do we help the executives and the actual firms in that industry relative to how much do we help the workers who will then be able to spend money again and help prevent some of the broader system shock. Um, Go narrowing down again to games. I was thinking about what are some of the best industries to be in a pandemic, and honestly, I think medical device manufacturing is one, but number two is probably gaming. Right? I saw a funny meme which was 2019. Esports is not a sport, and then it was like 2020. Esports is the only sport, right? Yeah, exactly. So gaming, honestly, as shitty as it is to say, because obviously a pandemic is tragic for everyone. I think it's bad for the people who get laid off. It's bad for the people who get sick, who die. It's bad for all of us in a much lesser degree than those other categories. We're having to sit at home and fucking do nothing and see no one all the time. But gaming is a fantastic activity for when you're at home. And I think you're going to actually not only see an uptick in people playing games, but an uptick in the amount of time people play games, but an uptick in the number of people who are playing games. I think, for example, the Netherlands originally started with a 3-week quarantine, and that's been extended until June 1st. And so, so when you're talking about, a 2.5-month quarantine, uh, what you're going to see is you're going to see people who wouldn't normally play games picking up games. So I think platforms like Valve and Epic Game Store and the games themselves are all going to do very well because I think people are going to be sitting at home. They don't have alternative options, and they're going to be playing games. And the downstream is also esports, right? Which is if you don't feel like playing games, you don't have money to buy a new game or anything like that, you can still watch esports. And maybe when you're sitting at home and you've never tried esports, you're saying like, well, fuck it, I got nothing else to do. I've been watching Twitch all day. Maybe I'll go check out the LEC or the LCS or OWL or any of these esports products. And they are able to continue to broadcast and perform even in a situation where you have a lockdown quarantine. So you're gonna see an uptick in esports, also an uptick in gaming. It's a very dark uptick, and I don't think people in the industry should be celebrating it because obviously this is not a situation where we're happy that this is happening. But we should acknowledge that I would really expect both gaming and esports to do well. Now, one of the challenges esports has specifically is that even though viewership is going to go up, most of the revenue deals are based on a buy basis, which basically means that if I buy a sponsorship, I'm buying it ahead of time for the year, and I'm buying it based on last year's viewership. I'm not paying some fraction of a euro cent on the viewership hour, right? I'm buying based on what we saw last year, what we expect for this year. And the same thing happens for media rights, which means the reality is that sponsors will get a more efficient deal out of what they paid for, and media rights companies like Twitch will get more money for these broadcasts because more people are viewing. The actual organizers and the teams probably won't see a dime, if you will, to use American expression, of that value add. But what you will see is that both of these downstream players will get more benefit from that uptick in exposure. The fear, unfortunately, though, is that when the organizers go and try and sell next year based on the increased exposure numbers, they're going to basically write it off as coronavirus. They're going to say, well, look, more people are inside. I mean, you see this every year in the in esports in general, is in the spring and the winter months, and you see in traditional sports too. You have a lot higher viewership than in the summer months. The summer months are always kind of down season. I mean, there are exceptions. Obviously, the World Cup and the Euro Cup are exceptional products that will always get high viewership. But the further you go into warm weather, the less people want to sit at home and watch. So, especially the longer this drags on, the more viewership, the more exceptionally increased viewership you're going to see. But I think it's going to be hard for the actual value generators in the ecosystem to sell against that, because I think a lot of them, when they go into negotiations, are going to say, well, it's a blip. It's a coronavirus blip. So in the end, I think the big beneficiaries on the esports side of this uptick in viewership are going to be the brands who are going to see higher exposure for euro that they spend, and the media rights platforms like Twitch and YouTube, who paid some money up front, but are going to actually get more revenue from the ads they're exposing to all the new viewers.
Right.
I do also
Makes
wonder,
sense.
just as a quick add to that, how much the quality of product change for things like the LEC and the LCS will affect viewership numbers. Because we did see
That's a good point.
for just on casual viewing of the numbers last week, like just looking at Twitch streams, we had less viewers than we usually would on those games because the product wasn't as good, right? But it may be as it goes longer and we refine the product more, and generally the products are more refined because we've had longer to prep, the viewers will then bounce up and go up again. We'll see.
That's a fair point. Sorry, just to jump in on
Maybe
the
they
back
won't
of
have as
that.
many alternatives, though. Yeah.
That's true.
That's a fair point. But no, but I mean, I think the alternative then is that you just watch your favorite streamers, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's actually
in the end, it's all going to be in that sort of bubble. It's like streaming or video watching or Netflix or YouTube or something. But whether it goes all into esports is my question.
But I think I think when you're making a good point though, right, is that the downstream effect might be, because at the end of the day, obviously the broadcast quality does go down because you're never gonna be able to put together the same show from your bedroom that you can from the LEC studio. Maybe the downstream effect is that the viewership kind of evens out, but doesn't really rise. But actually, other streams on Twitch go up, right? So like,
I've actually seen more alternative streams too, like music production or just more random stuff.
But even staying within the game space, because at the end of the day, now suddenly, you know, if someone like Sacriel or Dr. Disrespect or Shroud, them streaming in their room doesn't even necessarily feel like such a big jump in show production value as it does from the LEC, purely because the casters are broadcasting from the room. So maybe actually the end result is that the streamers are the net winners, but yeah.
We'll see.
We shall see. I think you'll see an increase in variety streams for sure. A lot of people who are entertainers, I think, in different areas are now coming into streaming or figuring it out. I know we were trying to buy Logitech cameras and all of them were sold out in multiple countries.
Yeah.
No Ethernet cables either and things. I
saw Dominic Monaghan. Is it Dominic Monaghan? The guy who played Merry in Lord of the Rings was doing Instagram live streams. Shun, I can't remember her name. The woman that was Akali in the KDA band, she was doing League of Legends streams, and she's never streamed before. Like we had a bunch of rugby players playing League of Legends, a bunch of FIFA, La Liga players played FIFA and streamed with eBay, and like there are definitely more general athletes and general sports people and general personalities getting into the streaming space. Just because what else do you do when you're at home for 24 hours a day? Right?
They also can't. A lot of normal entertainment is down right now as well. So a lot of those, I know for us, we were looking at agencies in a way that we wouldn't normally, just because we know there's more availability of talent because most of their normal broadcaster situations aren't available.
Yeah, Excel, I remember their staff actually did a show match between professional rugby players as an example of that. Yeah,
and they got destroyed, which was hilarious to me.
I know.
So the rugby players dominated them.
We have like a WhatsApp group of a bunch of people who go to some of the esports business conferences and stuff, and Kieran got thoroughly flamed in those.
Good.
As he deserves, of course.
Yep.
Love you, Kieran.
That's great. On a closing note of positivity, if Aaron, you and Remer had to 1v1, who wins? And is there any world in which Remer could win?
I think Remer would beat me. Do you play shooters, Remer? I feel like you play shooters.
I do. I play shooters.
I think Remer would beat me at shooters because I'm not very good at shooters. I would definitely beat him at
mid lane
League
because he's support main.
No, I would still beat you. Like, there's still a gulf in talent between a diamond player and a silver player, Remer.
I'm gold, motherfucker. I'm almost plat.
They're all the same. Anything below plat is it's one big blob of badness.
I ended last season at gold 1, okay? And I'm a mid laner, and I'm 30.
You couldn't even, so you have more agency. You should be able to make it higher than gold.
No, I'm slower and I'm dumber and I'm still almost making the plat. We'll have to 1v1 in the mid lane. Like support, yes, he will crush my ass at support. I don't have the knowledge of a support player. But also support is just knowledge, it's not skill, right? So
Oh, sure, yeah. We'll tell that to all of the support players. It's one world. It's fine. Let's talk to Mythy quickly. Hey.
No, Mythy's not the best example.
No, he's not.
But so we can 1v1 later in the mid lane. Do the all-star rules and see how that goes.
I would love
We'll see who
to
wins.
see you 2-1v1 in the mid lane. You should stream it. You can start your own little stream now.
Yeah.
In a physical
All right,
fight,
thank you.
Aaron beats me for sure.
I think that's true.
Oh,
as well,
physical.
yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
true.
In
as
a
well.
mental
Breaks down a
battle,
lot
I think
more than I
Remer
do.
wins. Yeah.
Oh,
Do you?
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Mostly
very
because
kind.
he knows how to argue without actually having any facts. I like to have logic and I like to have facts to back up my points, whereas Remer's just like talks you into a circle, and then 10 minutes later you realize he didn't actually say anything. It's like, oh, I lost that argument again, didn't I?
Trump is president, man. It's 2020.
All right, and on that note, thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate
you
you
very
both
Thank you.
giving your input, giving your expertise and your master's degrees towards the greater cause.
I think we cut that last 50 minutes.
No,
guys.
keep
Cut
it
the
in.
last 50 minutes.
Keep it in.
Keep it in. All right,
Thanks,
thanks you
Ella.
guys. See you next time.
It was fun. Bye.